The Concordia Symphony Orchestra is a university and community ensemble led by Dr. Daniele Lisboa, professor of music at Concordia University of Edmonton. This is the story of the orchestra's challenges during the coronavirus pandemic that gripped the world from 2020 and onwards.
I'm going to go back to our last concert with the full ensemble. It was 1,000 Veil, that was the title of it. We had here in this location, it was a concert that we collaborated with the Arab community. It was full, so colorful dancers. It was just a very, very cool concert. That was March the 1st. And 1 month before that concert, I received a note from the producers of our last show that was supposed to happen in April at the Winsphere. And that concert, it was going to be a collaboration with the Chinese community. So the Chinese orchestra from Vancouver would come and play with us, and we were performing Chinese music. Then around the beginning of February, I got that email from the producer saying, "We are canceling the event." Of course, a lot of things on the news already coming from China about the virus from the turn of the year. But here we were worried. I wouldn't say we weren't, but it was not as big. So to me, I received as a huge surprise, right? Oh my goodness, would that be an overreaction? We've been planning this for almost 1 full year, and then we have to cancel that event. So while we were preparing for 1,000 Veils, I switched programs. Now we didn't have the program for April anymore. I had to find something else. And I remember deciding for Beethoven Pastoral Symphony, so we called that Nature Portraits. We didn't have the venue anymore because, of course, it was canceled. So I went with some of our musicians to the Art Gallery of Edmonton. We checked the space to see. I wanted something with paintings related to art exhibition and paintings for that program. So we checked out the venue. And I remember envisioning the poster. That's how I do. I envisioned the poster. I was in touch with the designer. I knew the image. And I wrote the press release. And if you see the press release, I'm still hopeful at that point. I still believe that with a smaller audience, with masks, I believe we would be able to present the last concert. Then we had to cancel that one too.
The bustling Tegler Student Center, the heart of Concordia's, was silent. The Concordia Symphony Orchestra, or CSO for short, rehearses in Tegler Wednesday evenings, and it's the highlight of the community musicians' week. Many have been longtime friends. There are also student musicians who partake in the ensemble as part of their orchestral training.
So I thought I'd given up the bassoon for good, and then I moved to Edmonton, and I thought it would be fun to pick it up again. So I started playing a little bit and got invited to play at the orchestra at Concordia, and I went to exactly one practice, and there were rumors in the air about maybe things not being all right around the world anymore, but I don't know how it is that I just got one practice in and then everything was over. So I'm pretty sure I caused COVID.
Most immediately, the concert that was planned to debut the chamber nucleus was cancelled. The CSO chamber nucleus was a novel idea developed by Daniele to encourage chamber ensembles to complement the full orchestral works that the orchestra performs. Many of the musicians in the orchestra are very active performers, playing in numerous groups during a regular week. The months prior to the shutdown were bustling full of activity, and the nucleus debut in Tegler was just booked for the end of the month. This concert, called Sound Blender, was a wonderful mixture of classical musical genres. In the first few weeks of the pandemic, everything was at a standstill. People were locked up in their houses, keeping their eyes glued to the TV news reports. Classes at Concordia were abruptly switched online, and everyone was just trying to salvage the end of the school year. The learning curve for both students and faculty was steep, with technology and new ways of learning that needed to be figured out immediately. While most students were savvy in the ways of online communication, being completely cut off from friends other than virtual meetups was strenuous. For Daniele, staying connected with the orchestra was also important, and so attempts were made to meet up online and start a discussion. Some of the musicians were starting to get inspired by online mashup videos and were beginning to plan some recordings together. But what would a conductor be able to do? The players, on the other hand, thought it was quick work to play with a metronome or recording. They assumed that it was speedy, cut-and-paste work, provided everybody played in time. After all, wasn't that what one needed to do an orchestra anyway? One of the first projects was done by cellist Sharon and oboist Stephanie, along with friends of theirs, Doug on double bass and Renee on baroque guitar. By the end of the semester, Daniele fleshed out a collaborative project to make up some of the lost rehearsal time and to give people a fun project to do. Rock, flautist and communications liaison for CSO, wanted to experiment with some software and try to do an orchestral mashup. So, one by one, the musicians started recording their parts to a click track of metronome ticks in complete isolation at home. But what one doesn't see when browsing YouTube is the amount of work to edit the video and audio together, and how those internet stars are very skilled in the media creation and production process. So, the project got completed to a certain point.
It's neat, it's fascinating to be able to put together some music without being together. And I can only speak for myself, but I found it to be very, work intensive for whoever's mixing, more than I thought. And so the need factor kind of went down after a while. You get tired of it, actually. The part that really got me, and maybe some others, is I didn't find it very rewarding, because there's no collaboration going on. Okay, you're just plugging in your stuff, and so I found that very difficult.
The development of a concert season is a years-long process. It starts with the season goals and then the thematic plan for each concert. Pieces are chosen, bought, or rented, and the arduous task of score analysis by the conductor begins. Now relieved of these particular duties, Daniele went back to her other instrument, the piano.
super defiant. And I knew that conducting had no place at that particular one. I had to stop and think of different ways that I could express and make music, which brought me back to my instrument. So chamber music, it was crucial, it was key to keep my mental health and keep me engaged with the community, with the Concordia community, the CSO community. I thought we developed a level of friendship, and I'm saying this with the musicians, in a different role, much deeper, because I've played with so many musicians in this different role, which is collaboration. And so we got to know each other at different levels. Now I can't wait to start a new season with the full ensemble, but I know that we look at each other with different eyes. I think you know a little bit more about me than you knew before the pandemic, maybe. And the same with the other, from my point of view, like what we live through together playing, because chamber music is very intimate, right? So if there's one positive, I would say the tightening of these relationships with the musicians, that now they are stronger, I feel, than they were before.
We feed off of each other, and for an orchestra, we are guided by our leader at the front, whose purpose is to steer us to a musical goal. A ticking metronome is a poor substitute. We needed to work together simultaneously and collaboratively. By the time summer arrived, the musicians in their silent vigil had had enough. There was music to be made. It was finally warm enough to venture outdoors with our instruments. The public health restrictions meant that we needed to practice outdoors and be spread out. Orchestral musicians rarely play outside for more reasons than one. In July, we tried our first driveway and yard rehearsals. Recalling Kristen, who we met once and hardly recognized, we decided to contact her and asked if she'd like to play with us, or if she remembered who we were.
I was able to meet people that I kept in contact with over the course of the next couple of years, and we were able to practice as restrictions changed and as things were developed, either in garages or outdoors or just a couple of people inside or concerts outside.
Indeed. Our outdoor gatherings with the new bassoonist were in all sorts of various places, with even chickens in attendance. On a few nice Edmonton days, we were able to comfortably assemble and play. If we needed a little bit more shelter, a nearby gazebo fit the bill. Dealing with music being swept up into the sky, insects, the blazing sun, bird droppings, and even aphid dew from a tree, it did bring a whole new set of challenges than the actual playing. Soon, some of the orchestra members were able to do some small outdoor concerts.
It's kind of strange to actually enjoy having someone who's not in the same intonation as you, and you have to adjust to it.
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm not. It's me who's out of tune. Whatever, it doesn't matter, right? All of a sudden, we're all listening to each other, and there's this fluid thing going on, which can't go on in a virtual environment, and it can't go on if you're playing alone at home. Yeah, you can tune to your tuner, but that's not real. When you're with real people, the intonation will not be perfect, and people have to, okay, well, yeah, that note is low on the bassoon, okay, let me bend it down, okay? So there's stuff going on that's just totally fun.
And it's amazing how the more we play together, right, we understand each other. I know your tendencies, you know my tendencies. The more we actually play together, we're trying to become in sync, right? So it's kind of really awesome. It's like
the amount of work in preparing some of these concerts is enormous. And monthly, it's like you just finish one and you're already starting to organize the next one. So there was some relief there. It's like, finally a break. But on the other hand, for me, any music I learn, and Stephanie knows this for me, is I'm not interested in learning something that we're not going to perform. Because it's like reading 9 chapters out of a book, but not the 10th one. It just makes no sense to me, never has, and I will always want to perform whatever. The exception to that is sometimes we learn something in a lesson specifically for another goal, but other than that, to me, we need to perform. So that's why it's so hard, and it's still hard now because these concerts are still not on. We have occasional summer concerts, but our main series is off, and I'm certainly hoping the orchestra we can have our concerts.
But the desire to perform was too great.
I feel like we adapted pretty well to all the changing restrictions, and I think it gave us all the opportunity to continue to have a musical outlet throughout a time that has been difficult on many fronts. And I know that for me, having that was something important and something that gave me joy over the course of this time, despite the fact that we had to really play it by ear and be quick on our feet. But I'm thankful for the friendships I've developed.
In my case, and in other people too, it permitted to focus on other stuff actually. I'm still taking lessons, so all of a sudden lessons were less repertoire intensive and all of that. It was, okay, let's go back now and look at some stuff that we should have been looking at. So there was a lot of good things that came out of it in refocusing some of the aspects of making music. But overall, I could have passed. I could have went out without it.
You were able to have lessons for a while in person.
I never stopped my lessons. We distanced. Yeah.
You went online?
No, never went online. Because my teacher was able to continue because she has a business. Businesses were still able to operate as long as they had one person only and distanced. So like 4-meter distance. So never actually went online, and I don't think I ever would. Some people have successfully. I don't know if I could. For a bit the same reason I'm saying it's just not the same. It's and hearing the subtleties of sound over the internet, I don't know. I know all the experience I've had of recording, I didn't find fantastic for what it was reproducing.
I'm I'm a music student at Concordia. So when the shutdown happened, all of my courses had to be online. I was currently just taking only music courses, so most of them required face-to-face interaction. I had music lessons that had to go online, and this was, shortly before we had to prepare for our final juries, our final exams. Chamber music class and orchestra had to be canceled instantly since we couldn't actually get together to play. And as well, I had a class where we were learning to sing and count together in a very precise manner. And Google Meets kept on dropping out for me, and it's just not designed for synchronization. No technology right now is able for people to really properly play together online. So for the 2020 to 21 school year, I just decided not to take oboe lessons because I didn't feel it was worth having virtual lessons. Playing music is a very practical skill. You have to be really working directly with your teacher. They need to see exactly what you're doing, all your tiny nuances. And as an oboist, half of our work is hands-on making oboe reeds. So that was something that you essentially cannot do online. Another advantage, I guess, is that I got to play with Danielle. She's an extremely talented pianist, and so it was great to be able to do chamber music pieces with her on pieces that we essentially didn't try to do because we couldn't ever find a pianist that was skilled enough. So it was really fun playing with her and just getting to know her a little bit more. But it was extremely tough trying to get a degree in what's essentially a collaborative field. If it were more lecture-based, a program that's more lecture-based, I could probably deal with it online. And there would be probably some advantages, like not having to commute to school. But doing a music degree and, spending half of it online or not be able to play with anyone, I think that's a bit of a detriment. There's something lacking in our training at this point. I mean, I'm trying to do my best to mitigate that because any opportunity I get a chance to play with people, I will. But it's quite a challenge, and I feel that everyone that's in the program now has a little bit of catching up to do. But fortunately, I have had a lot of ensemble experience already. I normally do a lot of chamber music, and so it was really tough to be completely cut off from my other musical colleagues, who are my friends too. So we just kind of felt isolated and cut off from each other. I also kind of felt bad for not being able to do my chamber organization's monthly free concerts. We usually have monthly concerts that are really, really well attended. Many seniors and parents with kids in the area would come to our noon hour concerts. And I know they really appreciated the opportunity to get out of the house and enjoy a show and to socialize with people. So I felt that by not being able to kind of provide this service or opportunity that not only the musicians ourselves lost out, but the community in general too. The dog days of summer 2020 finally led to a public concert held at the Anglican parish of Christchurch. The concert was supposed to be held at La Cité Francophone, but a COVID scare led to the closure of the venue 24 hours before Downbeat. We had to be flexible, and within about 2 hours, we had managed to secure this new venue. Despite the last-minute change, the turnout to the concert was very good. This was one of the last times we were able to gather outdoors before it became too cold to play out in the open. Luckily, some musicians had larger spaces in their houses to accommodate duets, which, considering most gatherings were restricted to 2 households, was the largest size one could have.
I definitely don't want to go back to the way things have been, with being hard to see people and stuff. And I'm one of the most introverted people you will meet, so, but I need the human interaction.
Yeah, I'm extroverted, so I enjoy the company of people. So for me, it was a big trial. But it was fun that I found a way.
Do we remember everything we decided based on?
No, not really. So whatever's in our unconscious level,
It's too
That's
late.
gonna be
It's
a-
too late for new neural pathways. We all thought life was going to go along fairly normally and everything screeched to a halt. And one by one, I got news of things being canceled. So it started with other activities that I'm involved in. And I thought, oh, okay, so this weekend's, we've lost this weekend, okay. But then in 3 weeks we have another plan, so, but we're gonna do that, but now, oh no, that's gone. And then all of a sudden Orchestra was done, and then everything was finished. And like everybody else, it was shocking and disappointing and depressing. But it seemed like it opened up this creativity for so many people to come up with these projects. I personally started working harder on my own playing because I thought, well, I might as well work more on my clarinet, and I got in touch with my teacher and we did a bunch of Zoom lessons, and I think I've actually become a lot better player in the last year than I would have if I had been in orchestra all that time, because when you just focus on orchestra music, you have a handful of pieces and you really concentrate on those for 6 to 7 weeks at a time, and you don't have a lot of time to do your own thing and develop your own playing. So if there is a benefit of COVID, that has been it. And the exposure of playing in small groups is super challenging, and it forces you to really try to get every note and not go, oh, well, I know there's one measure, but it's a hidden spot. I can let it go for this time. like a person maybe tends to do in an orchestra or a big group.
When autumn arrived, the musicians had to get creative. Orchestral instruments are sensitive to the environment, especially wooden ones. Besides the fact that the temperature can affect tuning, blowing into a cold wooden instrument can have disastrous effects. Not to mention, sitting in the cold with bare hands is quite uncomfortable. We were struggling to actually literally find places to even just play, let alone perform, right? And so we were doing all of these weird hacks where we would be in a garage, huddled with a heater, we had the heater surrounding us. Bundling up, we're like shivering, trying to play. I mean, even a few days ago, it was August. We were freezing outside. We were talking about, oh my god, can this concert end? So, I mean, especially in Edmonton, right? It's really tough to play outdoors.
So we repeat that whole second section and then head to the.
Well, there's a repeat in the first section, right? Did you see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But the second time through, you don't do that.
No, not
Obviously.
the second time through. No repeats on the second time through. The capo, no repeats.
Yes.
And then the coda.
Yes.
Chances of getting together to the end?
Well, do you remember
Less than 10%.
Hi, how are ya?
For a brief time, the chamber nucleus was allowed to rehearse inside Tegler. These were some joyous reunions with people we hadn't seen in a long, long time. Everyone was pent up with energy to play. Between playing in heated garages and in very limited time slots at Concordia, due to the requirement to clear the air, we thought we had a good temporary solution for the fall. Ross, the horn player, even brought in his air purifier to rehearsals. But on November 24th, another set of severe gathering restrictions was announced, and this shuttered almost everything over the winter. This was another deep blow to the morale of the players. The fall school term was a bit tricky. we were online. I was taking conducting, and our lectures were virtual. So we were looking through a tiny screen trying to figure out how to wave the baton. While our exams were in person, all of our practice was essentially following a CD recording or imagining the tune in our heads while we conducted. My online Baroque oboe lessons went quite well, and I was generally happy given the circumstances. But a few days before we were going to record our exam pieces, the new gathering restrictions kicked in, and I could not play with my accompanists. So literally, I had to send them a recording of myself playing the piece. Then they recorded themselves for me. And during my exam, I had to run that recorded accompaniment and try to play along with it for my exam recording. So that was quite zany, I would say. And then the gas pedal was down, or at least pumping. It was never clear how our performance activities fit within the steps for reopening. But for certain, we were going to have another summer of outdoor playing. It wasn't necessarily the best summer ever, but it was certainly the hottest summer ever, temperature-wise. By the end of the summer, it looked promising, with university and orchestra set to happen in person again. We were excitedly looking forward to September.
I think there's something very natural that's going to happen, and we've seen it with the groups that got together. We're so happy to be playing with others. So I think there's going to be an appreciation that we've never had, just to actually be there. You had it before, it was all the same, but I don't think you realized the value of it, or certainly I didn't. And it's so thrilling to play with real people when you play with two-dimensional people on a screen. So hopefully the message is just, I don't know if I have a message, I'm just hoping everyone sees it the same way as I do, and it's just so thrilled to be together again, the way we are in the chamber groups. I think there's a bit of anxiety there, but not a lot. The Concordia University has set in a lot of safety measures, so they're requiring vaccinated people to be vaccinated. So I'm okay. I'm okay with that. I'm more worried about having to shut down because of numbers that are way too high, and the university shutting us down. That's my biggest worry right now. I'm just hoping that doesn't happen.
I mean, we're very interdependent, but also we need to listen to people's concerns. Not everyone has the same tolerance, for instance, in distance between you, or sharing a music stand, or so supporting each person, I think, in the orchestra is critical. And if someone needs to be home because they're not sure they feel well, we've got to support that as an orchestra, right? That's really critical. Because normally we all haul ourselves out, no matter how we're feeling, to play, because the orchestra, your section, depends on you, and you can't do that this time. You've really, really got to emphasize the need to look after each and every one of us. I think, for me, that's the
reasonable risk. Even if we're all vaccinated, there's some risk, okay? Because, some people live with children who are not vaccinated, obviously, so there will be some risk, but I'm willing to live with that risk, as long as, we've done everything possible
think we're doing that with our orchestra, so.
I'm not willing to play in, like, Stephanie sent me pictures, videos of people that are actually in a tent, individual tents. Was this a joke or was this
No, schools.
They're in
There's
tents.
actually schools that
And
are
you know
in
what?
little tents. Yeah.
I will not do that. I will wait rather than do that. There's a certain line somewhere, and that I don't mind a barrier, a glass barrier, but a tent all in bubbles. It's like I'll just stay.
Now, with the dual goals of both the Concordia Symphony Orchestra and the chamber nucleus, the push towards the first CSO concert since March 2020 was in full swing. Safety protocols had to be met. Being even more vigilant wasn't a bad idea either. String players had to wear masks, and the winds had to use instrument covers.
I haven't noticed too much change in the tuning or in the sound, as I recall. I haven't checked it lately. The problem is getting the mutes in and out, because this is a problem. But it's interesting with the, there's a study done in Britain, and it compared cornets with and without the cover. So without the cover, aerosolization was up here. With the cover, it was like, hardly recognizable. So trumpets versus horn, I have to look up on that again. Trumpet is 4.5 feet in length. The horn could be 9 to 12 feet in length. I think most of it gets trapped in here, but.
Yeah, mine's on the end too. But I think when I saw studies that a lot of air comes out of the holes when they're not covered too, and so some people have like a sock that goes over their whole clarinet, but I did not go.
I think most of my air actually comes out down here anyway, so when they're recording they usually put mics down on this end rather than up there, but that's what we have as far as covers go.
Obviously we can't cover the flute mouthpiece with a sock because they get no sound, but so that the stream doesn't go anywhere, it's there. And really it actually, you'd think it would muffle the flute, but it doesn't. It actually amplifies it. It's strange. It sounds a bit louder. Yeah.
Even stand-up comedy, you're gonna see someone performing better if people are laughing. So you need that feedback. It's a community, experience. So all performing arts were hard hit, including us, including musicians. But again, we never stop. I think we said, we're gonna continue. We're gonna continue.
Yeah, like the 2 measures before D, I was not sure. Can we do 112?
Yeah.
Please, can we stick with the 112?
Take it from the top at 112.
You want to take it from the top at 112?
We have 120 from the record.
With Concordia University now on the cusp of a new school year and allowing some controlled events on campus, the plan for the upcoming season was being finalized. The recruitment poster was out, the season program was ready, but things were going to look a bit differently.
I don't see the audience sitting as they used to sit in there. So I'm seeing more like isolated tables in small groups until we feel collectively comfortable, right? So we are playing with the different things. We're going to be trying different things for our first concert and see how the audience respond. I have lots of scenarios for this season, so we are starting with a smaller instrumentation. If you notice, for this first concert, I did not include any low brass and any trumpet, so I chose carefully to grow slowly when I was planning. And I usually plan seasons 1 year ahead or something. That one we were going with the flow, and I also embedded the chamber series in that new season. And the chamber series is also a backup plan for us, because here in Alberta, COVID numbers are creeping up very rapidly. So I'm not going to be surprised if there's another shift where we have to go for a lockdown or some restrictions, and then we know that we still can continue to play in small numbers with the chamber. So what I've learned, what is different from previous season, before I would plan more than 1 year in advance. The program was set, will never change. That was it. Would hire all the soloists, whatever is needed. I know this is the program. I'm talking here 2020. I'm thinking already 22, 23. That's where my head is now. But with this season, there is room, there is flexibility for us to change things around here and there. And the musicians are more receptive, I would think, because we need to respond quickly for whatever happened. So that kind of flexibility, it was not there before, but I know I can play with that a little bit more.
A joyous occasion. September 8th, 2021 marked the return of Orchestra. New and familiar faces greeted each other behind masks. The orchestra had to make adjustments on how we were to be seated. Each person had their own stand, and the winds had to sit up on the terrace. Rehearsals had to have breaks to clear the air. Another circuit breaker of restrictions was instituted. Classes at Concordia were moved online for 2 weeks. The orchestra had even more severe rehearsal restrictions. And again, Daniele had to pivot. Shorter rehearsals and fewer musicians grouped together meant that there would not be enough time to prepare all of the music. Tegler was also off limits for events. The October concerts were cancelled. Yet, the orchestra persevered through adaptation and even a rehearsal via Zoom. On November 20th, the CSO chamber nucleus made its debut. Before a modest but appreciative audience, under the din of stage lights, players presented chamber music that had been worked on tirelessly, some for over a year. Between duties as conductor and professor, Daniele was also able to debut her CSO nucleus role as pianist in the Mozart Piano Quintet for Winds. An old friend, but newest orchestra member, Doug, also joined in on the fun. It was also great to perform pieces by a contemporary Canadian composer. A black swan symbolizes something that is very rare, because until its discovery in Australia, all known swans were white. A black swan event signifies a rare and unpredictable event which can have widespread ramifications and, in hindsight, was predictable. While the pandemic wasn't unpredictable, per se, the black swan of orchestra musician and conductor playing chamber music together was not expected and has lasting impact in the bonds that were formed. But in hindsight, it was probably the most natural and beautiful thing to have happened. With that event behind us, and an affirmation that we could hold events safely in the hall, we set our sights to myths and legends, polishing up Dvorak's expansive symphonic cycle, Legends, and Berlioz's song cycle, Les Nuits d'été. Finally, on December 5th, 21 months since its last concert, the Concordia Symphony Orchestra came together for a performance.
so that sense of urgency of doing things, maybe a fear would, kind of hold you back for something. There's no time for that anymore. Just do it. And this is something I took from that, like worrying less. At some point in the pandemic, when all that chaos of 2020 subsides, the white noise was gone. We were isolated, full lockdown. It was about May, June here. So everything was quiet in the university, no courses. All of a sudden, everything stopped. No distractions, no white noise, all that busy thing. And although, of course, there's anxiety involved, what's going to happen, is this thing going to, and when, as everybody else, there's one point when you have actually time with a clean mind to refocus. Whatever you want to go, you refocus. You say, okay, I haven't been doing this. I love to do this. How come? Why? So you start to give different directions. At least this happened to me. And of course, the main priority that you can't lose sight of. I want the well-being of my family. I want them to be happy, both my family here, kids, my husband, my family in Brazil, friends. So this has to and continue to be. I think I've never spoken through WhatsApp as often, like every day, with my family in Brazil, every day. So we start to have that very clear. What is that matters to you the most? Make sure you're taking good care of it. And then what are the things in your bucket list that you want to do? Because anything can happen.